Today we have the famous story of the woman at the well, and just a little bit of background. Again, when we think about the Samaritans were those who were in the northern kingdom of Israel that stayed in the land. Many of them were dispersed and became the lost tribes of Israel. But the ones who stayed then were intermarried with the Assyrians. They had a series of animal attacks. Assyrians got spooked. They said, let's send back the priests. The problem was that the priests were not very orthodox, let's say, because remember about Northern Kingdom of Israel, it was a little bit of, the high places, a little bit of the worship of the God of Israel, a little bit of the golden calf. So what they had was the priests who came back kind of mixed in a little bit with the Syrian folk religion. So they were kind of a mixed group. And that people many times would not go through Samaria, but would go around it. So think about going from Silver Spring to Frederick by way of Leesburg, Virginia. So going around completely, even though that certainly would add time and certainly would add miles to their journey. They didn't want to interact with the Samaritans. The other thing is the well. The well is an interesting history because if you wanted to meet the person of your dreams in the Old Testament, that was the place. We think about Moses meeting his wife there at the well. We think about Abraham sending his servant to get a wife for Isaac. Where does he meet her? At the well. We think about the woman at the well. What is she? As she's meeting the bridegroom there at the well. So Jesus starts out, he asks her for physical, asks her for water. She says a Jew, because again, not very pleasant, but again, Jews and Samaritans kind of despised each other, 700 years of tit for tat, so it makes sense. Then he talks about living water. Then she kind of softens when it becomes from Jew to Sir. And then he said, to bring the husband. She said, well, I don't have any husband. He said, that's correct. You've had 5 husbands. The person you have is not your husband. Sometimes people think about that as the idols of the people there, the Samaritans. Sometimes people think about different things, but it can be just that she's been looking for, like many, looking for love in kind of the wrong places, not finding it, seeking it, searching for it, but not finding it. So then she calls him a prophet and kind of deflects to that idea of worship. Okay, where should we worship? You guys worship in the temple in Jerusalem. We worship on Mount Gerizim. Okay, and then what he does is that he again says that he talks about the Messiah. She says, I believe that he's coming. He then tells her that he is the one. He expresses plainly that he is the one. Now that's interesting because, again, people have been kind of looking for the Messiah in Israel, but Jesus has not told them plainly that he is the Messiah. Would they have believed him? Maybe not. But he doesn't tell them plainly. Just like when he does a miracle, for many of the people, he says, don't tell anyone. But for the person who was Legion, the person who was in Gentile territory, he wouldn't allow him to come into the boat to become a disciple, but he says to go and tell everyone about what I've done for you. So again, sometimes, it's interesting. But she goes to tell everyone. And when she comes back, what happens is that the people believe not because of her testimony, but because of the fact that they have seen and been with Jesus for 2 days. And so one of the things about that is we think about the fact that Jesus is that font of living water, that he is the one who brings about the Holy Spirit, the one who refreshes, the one who is responsible for teaching us about right and wrong, convicting us of sin, reminding us of the words of Jesus, and doing all these things It is the one who is the Holy Spirit that Jesus said, it's better for you that I go, because when I go, I'm going to send the Holy Spirit. And so he is that font of living water. He is the one who will be sending the Holy Spirit. And so one of the things that's also important for us to think about is that there was a bishop of the United Methodist Church, Will Willimon, and he has an interesting thought. He has a thought that many times, people are looking for the Lord in a church or in a monastery or in a particular sacred place, but many times the Lord appears to us, or we have the experience of God, not necessarily in those places. We have them, at the well or in the grocery store or things like that. And when I think about back in my life, I thought about the fact that certainly I have had, that kind of an experience of God, certainly in the church, but I've also had experience of God in the home or, doing different things and, just having that kind of an experience of God. So what it does is kind of encourages us to think about, the fact that to look for those times, those places where the Lord kind of tugs at us, and kind of makes known himself to us. Thanks. God bless.